Hello and welcome to TechCrunch's inaugural early stage event. I'm Jordan Crook. I'm managing editor at TechCrunch. This is not only our first early stage, it's also our first completely virtual event. It's exciting, a little nerve-wracking, but we are thrilled that you are here with us. Like I said, first early stage, we've never really done a conference like this before. Instead of focusing on mobility or robotics or space or disrupt, which covers kind of everything, this is all about early stage founders. And so we have experts from a million different walks of life. We are covering things like legal, growth marketing, PR, brand building, engineering, recruiting, and there are more fundraising sessions than I can count on both hands. You're not going to be able to catch it all. It's physically impossible, but luckily you can catch every breakout session on demand using Visibo. So just check out the agenda page, and within 24 hours, all the sessions will be up there. You can check them out. Recaps of these sessions are also going to be available on Extra Crunch, which is our premium editorial product. And if you are attending this event, you get 1 free year of Extra Crunch. So a unique code is being sent to your email. And if you register that within the next week, you'll have a free year of Extra Crunch. Now, if you already have an Extra Crunch membership, don't sweat it. We will extend your membership by a year. So just hit up customer service and they'll take care of you there. Final housekeeping note before we begin, Disrupt 2020 is coming up. It's in mid-September. We were very excited. It will also be a virtual event. It's taken a lot of work to get it all sorted out, but we are super, super excited. Some of our guests include Zoom CEO Eric Yuan, Whitney Wolford, who is the CEO and founder of Bumble, Jennifer Doudna, the mind behind CRISPR, and Kerry Washington, actor and investor. So it's going to be an amazing slate. That's just the tip of the iceberg. If you are interested in Disrupt and you happen to be here, you get 100%, not 100%, that would be crazy. You get $100 discount on either your digital Pro Pass or Startup Alley exhibitor package. And I know that a lot of you are founders. Definitely check out that Startup Alley exhibitor package because it's going to be super cool. With that, I think it's time to start the show. So please welcome our first panel. I'm going to throw it to Connie. Connie Loizos, take it away.
Hi, I'm Connie Loizos, and today we are going to be hearing from Jess, Lee, and James Buckhouse of Sequoia Capital. The topic, how to design a product that people will love. According to Sequoia, the secret is, interestingly, to work from the customer backward and to focus more on selling the solution and not the problem. But first, a little bit about our panelists. Jess Lee is a partner at Sequoia, as I mentioned, has been there for several years, has led such interesting consumer-facing deals as Maven, which is a women's health and family health clinic, along with Remix, which is a company that helps governments handle their public transit a little bit better. James, meanwhile, is a design partner at Sequoia. He's been there for 6 years, and James was a student at Brown where he studied visual arts. He then went on to become a layout animator at DreamWorks, which I think is so interesting. Then spent several years as a senior experience architect with Twitter before Sequoia nabbed him. So what's interesting today is these two are going to be talking about a curriculum that has been available only in-house to date for Sequoia-backed founders. And it helps them sort of shape their narrative and kind of create a culture that stands the test of time. So I'm excited that they're doing this. We really greatly appreciate it. I do want to let people know who are watching that you can ask questions. We want to hear your questions. Don't use the Zoom chat, but use the Zoom Q&A function. So Jess, James, thank you so much. I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you, Connie. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us at TechCrunch Early Stage. So I'm Jess. Before Sequoia, I was a former founder. It was a 9-year roller coaster of highs and lows. And what I realized is something that's really important is you're not just designing a product. You're not just designing a business. You're designing a company. And there's a lot to that. A company is a group of people. A company is your customers. A company is your culture and your beliefs. And so at Sequoia, we put together this program called the Company Design Program. It's something we've been working on now for, I think we first started almost 2 years ago. Every new Sequoia founder that we invest in comes through Sequoia, and we offer them the chance to sort of participate in either our seed stage program or our Series A or later program. And what we do is we pull together a cohort of founders and we walk them through some of the foundational frameworks for designing a company that will endure over the long run. And so today we're just excited to share a little bit of a glimpse of that program. This is our seed stage curriculum. It's all about starting with your customer and working backwards from that, because that's the root of like what the company is like, who is your customer? What problem are you trying to solve? James is, as Connie mentioned, he comes from the world of film and animation. And so we incorporate a little bit of the liberal arts and filmmaking and technology into this program, which makes it a little bit, makes it a lot of fun. It's got this sort of art studio vibe. So yeah, we're going to talk through a glimpse of that, which is starting with your customer.
All right, so we're going to do something a little bit weird where we're going to talk about your products by first diving into the world of filmmaking. So I come from making movies. These are a bunch of movies that I worked on, you know, the Shrek movies, the Madagascar movies. There's a George Clooney action adventure film, The Peacemaker, which dozens of people saw. Dozens saw that one. Ants is Woody Allen as Spartacus as an ant. Imagine that pitch meeting. That was really quite something. And then one close to my heart, Monsters vs. Aliens. That's where that was where I really learned how to like think about character, outward characteristics and inner character. Oh, and then Matrix. I worked on the Matrix movies. Not all the Matrix movies, actually, not the one you like and remember, but the one that was hardest to understand. The third one, Matrix 3, that's the one I worked on. It was wild. I was in between Shrek movies and got a chance to work on this movie. And I was all excited. I walk in and I see all the storyboards up on the wall. I'm all excited. And they're like, congratulations, you get to work on the cinematography of the finale of the Matrix series. It's going to be great. I'm like, awesome. Where are the rest of the boards? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, look, the story's going along. Something happens. We don't know what. Then the story's going along. Something happens. We don't know. The producer's face just like melts away. He's like, oh, God. Because what they had done was not give us the finale of the Matrix. They had chopped it up into 6 equal pieces, given us 1/6 of it. And so we didn't know how the movie went. We didn't know, is Keanu a good guy? Is he possessed? Is this evil Keanu? Is he happy? Is he insane? Like, how do we feel about these characters? Where's the story going? We didn't know the story. And so here we are making the movie without knowing the story. And it shows, right? We did every shot as best we could. And we tried to make our best choices as artists. But when you don't know where the story's going, you have a really hard time doing all those little tiny things that tell us how to feel. Are we down looking up? Are we up looking down? Like, how should it be framed? How should we feel in the moment? And the wild thing is that's the same thing we do with our products. Oh no, you're on the email retention team. You don't have to talk to the new user flow team. That's a different team. But everyone has to know the story and be braided, integrated into the story. So great stories start with great characters, outward characteristics and inner character. And that character isn't just like interesting. That character has a problem, goes on a journey, and then is transformed in the end. And here is our number one rule when we're working on story at DreamWorks is if there was no transformation, then there was no scene, no act, no reason to even have that moment in the film. We're just doing stuff, didn't matter. We had to do stuff to take you from one emotional state to the next. So if Shrek entered upset, the scene wasn't over until he exited with a different frame of mind. If he entered happy, the scene wasn't over until he exited upset. And then you just go back and forth like that all the way through. The same thing with your products, right? Your products have to have this moment of transformation. Otherwise, why do you have them in the first place?
So translating this into the world of product, in movies, you have your characters. And in companies and in products, you have your customers. And so what we're going to do is we're going to walk through a framework for describing your customer as if they were a character in a film. And so the way we do this is with personas. Persona, some of you've probably heard of them, are tools that help you describe your customer. The way to think about it is as this fictional character who represents a particular user type that might use your product or your company or your brand in a particular way. And many companies have multiple personas, and we'll walk through some of the more common ones in a little bit. A more scientific way about thinking of your customers is as a cluster of data points in an n-dimensional space. And what does that mean? So you can take a different set of think about a spectrum where you can describe a customer. For example, are they a tech Luddite or are they tech savvy? That's one spectrum, one axis. Then there's, let's say, price insensitivity. Are they price insensitive or are they very price sensitive? That's another axis. And that creates sort of this two-dimensional space. Now, every customer out there, you could probably plot them as a single data point in this two-dimensional space. There's some people who are very price insensitive but tech savvy, and then there are people who are tech Luddites but price insensitive, right? And then what you do is you draw clusters around the different groups. And then the persona is the person at the center of the cluster. But imagine there's actually more than two axes. There's like a lot of different ways to describe people. So if you map out all the possible customers, you do tend to see these clusters, and then you describe who the person is at the center of that cluster. And that gives you a sense of like, aha, those are my three different users. That is my engineer who is the frontline user of the product. And this is the Eng VP who sponsors the check to pay for the product. And so we'll walk you through some examples. Oh, another way to think about personas, especially as you get larger. Maybe today, because it's the early stage conference, your team is really small. Maybe it's just you. But as you grow, what you'll find is you might have a sense in your head of like, this is who the customer is. But as you scale and you add more people, it turns out that folks may have slightly different understandings of who the customer is. And so when you write it down in this clear, simple framework using persona, you start to see that people begin to like make similar decisions because they understand the problem. They understand who they're solving for. And this just makes everything clearer and things just run more smoothly. This especially becomes harder much later in the journey when you have a lot of people working on at the company. So what makes a good persona? The way to think about it, like how do you make a character that's real, that feels useful for product design, but it's also memorable so people understand it. So what you want to do is you want to create a story that sounds like a real person, a real human with a real story, with very crisp, clear needs and pain points. And that's the most important thing. What do they care about? And what problems are you trying to solve? You want to make it really simple though. If it's, 7,000 words about a person, like no one's going to remember that. So the art is actually simplifying it down to the memorable details. We also recommend adding a picture because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And sometimes right picture just really captures who this person is. Maybe it's the expression on their face, maybe it's the environment around them, but the picture makes it instantly memorable. And then how do you create personas? In the beginning, usually you use your intuition, maybe do some customer interviews. As you get later, you can start to use survey data. You can actually work with a research firm where they do this very fancy, 7,000 person survey and do clustering to try to figure out who your personas are. But in the beginning, it's probably just intuition and talking to people.
All right, so we're going to show this in action. This is not a theory. We're going to walk you through all of this work, but done with DoorDash. Done with DoorDash at the very beginning of this program a few years ago as we were working out all of these techniques. So I'm just going to lay on you the real story here from DoorDash. The persona here is Diner Diane. She's 40, a working mom, married. Her husband, Desmond, also works. They have 2 kids, but she's tired. She's working hard. In fact, she's overworked. She loves her family. She's frugal, but she would fight to do anything to do right by her family. But this is a hard place to be because there is true love in her heart for her husband, but it is rough having 2 jobs and 2 kids who have a lot of needs and needs that you gladly want to fulfill, but can never fulfill enough. There's tension involved, particularly around mealtime, because that's the moment when the kids want the most attention because they haven't seen you all day because you've been working and everyone's working late. You're all stressed out from the day. Like, how do you have something that makes sense there at mealtime? And that's where often unfairly for her, she feels the cultural burden of the expectations that, well, you're the one who usually plans the meal. So I don't know what's for dinner. And this causes marital tension. This takes a beautiful, happy marriage and turns it into this rocky marriage that's maybe even going to fall apart. Problem. How do we get towards a solution? Well, with DoorDash, they have a way to connect together, not just to order a meal. It's not just like an easy button for food, but it's a way where they can both start to participate and share the burden of meal plan and prep. Transformation. They've gone from a family that is still working hard, still tired, still loving, but to a family that can also have a few of these treasured moments that they want to have together. A marriage that can start to be happy with shared work and people they want to be one step closer to people they want to be. So what's wild about this persona, first of all, it wasn't just made up for this. These are our actual notes. This is from the working session with the product and design team at DoorDash to do this. What's wild about this persona is it isn't just like she needs a button to hit the button to get the food. It's she needs a happy life. And guess what? So does Desmond. And also, so do the kids.
And so what's really beautiful about that persona, I think, is, it sounds kind of dramatic, but that's sort of the point. Like, you want to be solving a real problem. And the problem is not like the part that maybe the DoorDash product team usually thinks about, which is get the food from the restaurant to the front door. It's like, what's the character experiencing through all that? And so you have this like memorable persona, Diner, Diane, and Desmond, right? Like, it's a little family. It's got that alliteration. Those like little things make it memorable, that picture. And then the transformation, her problem is actually mom guilt, right? She's not trying to like just get food or like solve her dinner. She's trying to solve her mom guilt problem. That's really memorable and something relatable. And the end, what she gets is she gets a happier life. Who doesn't? That's really, I think, the heart of all consumer products is you actually end up happier in some way. And so that's sort of what we encourage folks to do, like really think through that transformation. Even in enterprise SaaS software, there's also some transformation. Oftentimes it's a person trying to be more productive, make their job happier, not be upset at coming home late at night with all the stress. So that's how we encourage folks to think through the character in your movie or the customer at your company. So the next part of this is the plot. And the plot is the journey that the character goes on, right? The journey through your product. And that's, we're going to show you, we're going to talk a little bit about how to make a good story and then how to translate that to the story of your product and the journey through your user experience.
All right, for this, we're going to dig deep into the 3-act structure from the Hollywood summer blockbuster. Now, Connie, do you have your microphone on? Are you still with us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. I can totally hear you. Check this out. We're going to write a movie right now on the spot. And what I need from you is a disaster and the name of a person. First name of a person and a disaster.
Jerry, plane crash.
Jerry and a plane crash. Jerry and a plane crash. Problem. Jerry works really hard. He loves his wife and kids, but he's working so hard trying to make it so that they can have the life they want, but he hardly sees them, and it's driving him crazy. One more business trip he's got to take, and then he's going to be home for the summer, but he's just got to get on that plane. Problem. Stakes. While they're on the plane, something seems to be going wrong. Maybe this isn't going to work. And the whole time he's getting texts because he paid for that extra free Wi-Fi thingy, and there's a problem at home. Things are going on. His wife's upset. One of the kids broke his arm. There was a fight at school. There's all kinds of issues. Even worse. Okay, so there's something really wrong with the plane. This plane isn't just like a bad flight. This plane's gonna crash if we don't do something. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we've got to find a way, right? First steps. Maybe there's a way we can repair the plane, and they figure that out. Maybe they're crawling underneath the wires and putting them back together, or they're trying to do something, but that doesn't work. There's a setback. There's, once we get this engine back online, because we flip the fuse, the other one goes out, and what are we going to do? Second challenge. Not only are the engines failing, but we've got, what is it? Virus, snake, terrorist. What else is on the plane? Turtles, sharks. There's a madman.
Hijacker.
What is it?
Yeah, hijacker.
Hijacker. There's a hijacker on the plane that says I cut the wires on the engines on purpose. This plane's going down no matter what, and tries to take over the captain and bust into the cockpit to make it work. The team rallies together, works as a team, subdues the hijacker, And as they've subdued the hijacker, that's when they realize, wait a minute, if we work together as a team, we can also independently drive the two motors and like save the plane. So they use the knowledge of the game from the second challenge to revisit their first challenge to solve it, right? Solve it. And you've got your solution done. Now, most movies, most average movies, most mediocre movies have a problem, grow the problem, get a second problem, solve the second problem, they find a solution, then they stop, right? And that second challenge, which gives you the information on how to follow the first one, that is classic. It's my favorite moment. That's like in The Meg, when you realize there's, now I may spoil it for you, but there's a big shark. The Meg is, if you haven't seen it, is literally Jaws with a bigger shark. Guess what the second challenge of The Meg is? Shark. And I talk about film theory a lot with my kids, and like we were in that movie theater together, we were watching that, and when this, we get so excited because we know there's got to be a second shark, right? And the second shark comes, like my kids actually leaped up and screamed, "Second shark!" Well, like when the second shark comes, it's an amazing moment. Problem revisited, solution. But you can't stop at solution, because remember the DoorDash example. If you stop at solution, it's not really about hitting the button and getting the food. It's about becoming that person you want to be. So now this whole plane has worked together. They've landed the plane. And he's now there, reunited with his family. And he realizes what really matters to him is like the people they care about and he really wants to be with, right? And there's always has to be this second story, this emotional story of what you really want in life and how you can make that happen for us to take any action. All right, so that's the 3-act structure. Basically, think of it as conflict, development, which is the longest part, and resolution. There's always the same pattern of problem stakes. It gets even worse. First steps forward, then a setback, second challenge, problem revisited, solution, and transformation. And we can use this exact structure, which, by the way, wasn't invented by Hollywood. It's 2,300 years old, ripped off from this guy named Aristotle, which you can check out for free. Just Google the word Aristotle Poetics. There you go. And we apply it now to products.
So this is a matrix that we use to help founders sort of walk through what is their 3-act structure and who are their characters. So this is an example of an enterprise SaaS company. And so on the left, you see who are your characters. And then across the top, you've got Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. So that's sort of the journey of the product. As you can see, Act 1 is sell the problem. What is the problem the character is trying to solve? And then Act 2, we think about what's the first impression that they get when they see your product. Then what's their first attempt where they're like, does this solve my problem? How do you win them over? Then how do you make them go deeper and explore the rest of the product and sort of convert into Act 3, the transformation, where suddenly you've improved their life in some way. And then later they become advocates and tell all their friends or their coworkers about your product. So that's the story you want to take your character through. And on the left, there's actually often multiple characters in your product, so multiple personas. For an enterprise SaaS company, there's often let's say this is like some developer tool like GitHub or Slack or something like that. But there's an engineer, a frontline user who uses the product. Maybe there's the boss. It could be the MVP who sort of writes the check or approves that first credit card swipe. Then there's the architect, sometimes a little curmudgeonly and suspicious of new security holes or new software and might be a blocker, or could be your greatest champion. How do you convert that person? Because they later go on and evangelize to the world that your tool helped their company. Then potentially there's also the C-suite. Maybe there's a CFO involved who gets to the point where they're like, what is this like hundreds of thousands of dollars that my team is spending on this tool with credit card swipes that they've all done through corporate cards? Like, what is this, right? And so you think about that's an example of the characters. How do you get each of them through this transformation? And it's different for each character. So the other example is another common one, is consumer social, right? Totally different view, but there's often like different characters. They also go through the same journeys. It could be that there's a brand involved, a fan, a creator. If it's a marketplace, there might be the supply and the demand side. And within the supply and demand side, there might be different types. With something like DoorDash, there's the diner, the dasher, and the restaurant. And so James will take you through an example of this filled out for DoorDash.
So check this out. What's so sneaky about this is we've kind of laid it out so you could imagine it in this horizontal motion. So if we're looking here at the fan, you're watching the fan, like that person's journey from Act 1 through Act 2 to Act 3, all the way across horizontally, right? And then in parallel, you have a second horizontal task and a third horizontal and then a fourth horizontal. What's especially wild about how this matrix works is there's also vertical storytelling. There's the story that happens of all of those characters in those different moments. Where are all of those characters lining up for the first impression, the first attempt, going deeper, transformation? And you can see that a little bit here in the matrix we have filled out for DoorDash. So you've got the story of the design of the diner, which you can follow all the way across. Just, that's the story that we've talked about a little bit on how tough it is for Diane and Desmond as they're like going through, what they're struggling with as a family. How can they like make sure that their love wins and their kids are happy and they get where they want to be? You got the story of the Dasher who's got, his own life going on. He's trying to figure out like, hey, how can I like save up just a little bit more money so I can like, go back to, school and get that extra like night school credit that I want in order to like move my life forward towards a career that I want to have. And how do I do that and use this app and like solve these problems and make it through the day in a way where I feel like I'm both helping people and helping myself? And you got the restaurant that's saying like, what do I do? Like in good times when, this was written, of course, before COVID. So in good times, like when my restaurant's packed, like how do I serve more customers if I can't fit them in the tables? But I worry a little bit about like, is the same experience going to happen when the food has left my door? What's it going to be like and how can we make it all work? But check this out. The horizontal storytelling makes sense. You can follow those stories. But what I love is when we start looking at the vertical storytelling. So look at Go Deeper for a second. That same moment where the diner is there and the Dasher shows up, and the diner's mind, here's a stranger showing up at their door, right? Like those are usually weird situations. Those aren't always great situations. So there's an emotional moment there that you need to design for. And then in the Dasher moment, well, it's also weird for the Dasher. The Dasher's like, I'm going up to some stranger's house to like interact with them and deliver them something. Like, how's this going to go? Are they going to have a dog that is not happy, that is excited to see the food, but not happy to see me? Like, what's this going to be like, right? Like there's emotion and anxiety on all things. And they actually see the same situation slightly differently from their different points of view on, are you seeing it from the diner's point of view or the Dasher's point of view in the same moment? But check this out. The restaurateur, the person running the restaurant, here she is. She's like her own type of founder, her own type of entrepreneur that has built this whole restaurant. She's sitting there wondering, how'd that go? The food show up awesome, and I've just infinitely expanded the number of tabletops I've got to infinity, or am I going to go get dinged on Yelp because like the food showed up in a messy way? Are people happy with me? Are they not? And so she has that moment where she's wondering. And then that's where you can have these horizontal and vertical conversations where you can say like, all right, what can we do to keep the restaurant in the loop at the moment we're at the door? What can we do to keep the diner in the loop when the Dasher and the restaurant are interacting together in the kitchen? How can we have everyone communicating with everyone? And you see it now in the app where everyone's talking to you. You see the extra notifications, like so you know what's going on the journey. So you can cheer the Dasher on his way as he's bringing food to the family. And feedback back to the restaurant too. So the restaurant knows, okay, awesome. That totally went as expected. I'm delighted that went as it did. So the trick of the matrix, the thing that makes it totally different than like normal storyboarding, which is a single linear story, is that you got your horizontal storytelling and you've got your vertical storytelling. And then here it is blown out big. This is actually then taken one step further than our normal product experience matrix with the DoorDash team to show multiple touch points along every aspect of the product. And this was used for a while at DoorDash to help brand new employees come and understand, well, what a part of the product experience are you working on? What's your horizontal story and what's your vertical story? So that we can start to have conversations together around, okay, you're working on this and we're working on that. I see how it affects here. I see how it inputs here. I see how to make better decisions based on what's happening simultaneously and what's happening over time.
And one interesting thing. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
No, finish, James. Sorry.
It's just that if you only think of one of the stories, then someone's left out and bad things happen. And I think of it like a tumbler lock. You gotta flip all tumblers for the lock to unlock. And when you do, it works. And when you forget one, you're jammed no matter how good the other ones were.
It's also a great framework for you and your team to discuss your product. I think we've noticed that founders, it's very easy to focus on the middle section and not think about that transformation, that last step. So for the diner, obviously she's happy with her family. She gets rid of her mom. She feels less guilty. Then you've got the dasher who's able to achieve their dreams and pay for something, that side hustle that, you know, uses them to leapfrog to some better part of, you know, station in life. And then there's the restaurant who is able now to you know, make more money, and like, you know, she also has a family perhaps. So just walking through those, you start to think like beyond the walls of the UX, like, you know, how do you get that restaurant to put a sticker in the window that says, find me on DoorDash, right? Like those are the types of things that start to pop out. So you can do a team brainstorm around one vertical, around one user. You can ask how might we questions and do a lot of really interesting design thinking after you have the story. So anyway, that's a little bit of a taste of what we do at the company design program, a very shortened version. The program is usually much, much longer. Like this is normally a 2-hour talk, actually broken into 3 weeks. So thank you for having us.
It sounds like a fascinating framework. I sort of regret not asking James or making a character Brian Chesky in a pandemic, because things change so much. I think it's what your work is important, and it's important to note that the narrative is always changing, and you sort of need to revisit these storyboards. But guys, thank you so much. Really, we really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.